Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at Ask Adam Torres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, all that good stuff. And as always, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today I have Adam Vandermyde on the line, and he's president and CEO over at Petro West Inc. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right, Adam. Hey, when you get two Adams together, you know it's going to be a good show. So I'm pumped.
Trouble and good all at the same time. Absolutely.
So excited to get into Petro West Inc. and your acquisition. And you have a lot of changes going on in the company. But before we get into Petro West and the interesting time that you decided to purchase the business, by the way, I mean, we're gonna peel that one back. But before we get into that, let's go a little bit further into your background and maybe how you got started on this path, because I think it's a unique journey.
Yeah, happy to do it. So I did a number of things early in my career, heavy industrials, and worked for a company called Cintas Corporation, ended up being a plant manager. So a lot of processes and operations. I decided to go back to school and get an MBA and got a taste for consulting. So I decided to go into consulting after my MBA, which was a great career choice for me. Consulting is a great career. It's a very tough career, demanding career, but I like to say that you learn within your first 6 months in consulting, because you're on the ground, you're working, you're rubbing shoulders with the best and the brightest. You learn more in that 6 months than you do in all of your schooling combined. And so I did consulting for about 10 years and then moved over to, there was a private equity firm that just acquired a large marketing and advertising agency in Dallas. And so they recruited me to join the executive team there. I was there for about 3 years. Loved it, enjoyed it, and then took the plunge and into business ownership and acquired Petro West about 6 months ago.
Now, for context for everybody watching this is being recorded in 2021, we're in February still. So interesting time to acquire the business, and we'll go into that. But I want to go further into your consulting career, because number one, consulting is an extremely competitive space, I would argue. And you were always a top performer. So meaning you had a really decorated career there. And I know there's some people listening that are maybe just getting started, or they're kind of considering that consulting career and what that might look like for them. Like, what were some of those tips or some of those ways that you were able to separate yourself from the competition?
Yeah, I love that you asked that. And I think hopefully what I say pertains to even more than just consulting. But I liken that question to, if you're asked to clean out a closet, you're going to work, you head into work, and you're told, Adam, go clean out that closet. Most of the top or good performers, we'll say good to pretty good to very good performers, will do a very good job cleaning that closet. Mm-hmm. It'll be spick and span. It'll be dusted. It'll be organized. It'll be perfect. That was the task at hand, and that's what they do well. Yeah. The ones that set themselves apart are more problem solvers as opposed to task doers. So they think, okay, this was dirty. I'm going to clean it. I'm going to nail that. But why was it dirty in the first place? I'm going to go figure out what caused it to be dirty. Well, the problem is a dirty closet. I don't want it to happen again. So how can I solve that problem? Those who can, now in consulting and even elsewhere, it can take a long time before you get your head above water, because things move very fast, where you can kind of look around and see what the problem is, as opposed to just doing the task well, because you have to do the task well as well. But once you're able to accomplish that, what you're doing is then taking things off of your boss's plate, off of your manager's plate. And instead of them being very specific and go do this problem, they're like, or go do this task, they say, look, I've got this problem. Will you solve it for me? That is a huge benefit and a huge a burden off of a manager, and you will be that go-to person from now and forever. So those who can, again, solve a problem and not just do a task well are the ones that I've seen set themselves apart.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I was wondering where you're going with that analogy. And I'm like, all right, so was he going to say, how'd the closet get built? No, I get it completely. You're like, why was it dirty in the first place? That's great advice. And I do think that applies to many other things other than consulting, just business in general. But I would like to, so let's talk about, okay, let's just say that there's some, really high performers out there watching this right now. Where do they go? Because maybe they're already thinking along these lines of how did the closet get dirty in the first place, and what are they going to do next? Like maybe they're already there. Like where do they go, and how do they excel to get to that next level?
Well, by definition, you talked about high performers, so they're probably already got a grasp on what to do well, what sets them apart. But there's something I'd like to share. I had an experience early on in consulting that has stuck with me for forever. So I joined one consulting firm initially out of school. I had a good time there, but I was recruited heavily by another consulting firm. And so there was a number of conversations and reasons why I ended up choosing to go to that other consulting firm. One of those, however, was the other consulting firm had a little bit more local work, and it would take me off the road a little bit. I was gone all the time, right, in consulting. And as I was sitting down with a mentor, a partner that I had at this first consulting firm that I was leaving, mm-hmm. I told him some of the reasons why I was moving on to another consulting firm. And one of those is, I mentioned, it'll get me off the road. And he stopped me for a minute. He said, Adam, do you realize that if you would have just asked, I would have given you anything? You were a performer. If you would have just asked me, I would have taken you off the road in a heartbeat. And it was now that wasn't the only reason why I left. I'm glad I left. It was a great career move for me. However, that stuck with me. And I've coined a phrase, I think I coined the phrase of political capital that has kind of stuck with me the rest of my career, in that as you're performing, as you're in a company, you start to build up a bank account. You start to build up capital of, I'm performing well, I'm doing very, very well, and you have some sort of a balance. I've learned that you have the ability to then cash in every once in a while, whether it be asking for a pay raise, whether it be asking to get off the road a little bit in consulting, whether it be the office that you want. The list can be long, but if you understand your balance, you have the ability to do that. And I, at this other consulting firm, I actually used that and put that into practice. There was a time for personal reasons, I had to move across the country. Mm-hmm. I cashed in. There wasn't an office where I was moving. I said, look, this is something I've got to do. And I cashed in a lot of political capital. And I know I couldn't ask for anything for, several months until I built that back up. And it worked out. It worked out for my family. It worked out for the consulting firm. Everyone was happy. But had I not been performing, or had I just asked for a big raise, now I'm becoming needy. And so you need to understand the account and your political capital. But I do encourage people to use that. And I, as a manager, understand the political capital bank account of my people and my top performance as well. And we work on that together. So I guess ultimately, to sum that up, you build that capital, but then don't be afraid to use it. That's going to help you in your career, and it's better off for the employer as well.
Oh man, that's great. And I think you remind me of an old story. I don't know, this might be 10 years ago, might be more now when I read it. So who knows? But I think Jack Welch, that they used to call them, let's say a generation before us, they used to call those chets or something like that. And it was like little chips is what they called it essentially. And he tells a story in one of his biographies, I don't remember, about that happening at GE, exactly what you're talking about. And not, and having these chets or these imaginary chips that you would use to be able to do exactly what you described. So when you said it, I'm like, oh, come on, Adam. I knew I liked you for a reason. This is good.
That's right.
So let's talk about, okay, so now you're getting into the decision to become an entrepreneur, to jump off that ledge, to whatever we want to say. And now you're saying, okay, you acquired Petro West. Maybe we start there, because not everybody that's in the consulting space, let's just say, makes that jump to ownership and to where you went. I mean, that could be uncertain.
It can be uncertain. And you've brought it up a few times that it's an interesting time. And part of my mouth, I would agree with you. On the other part, interesting time for the positive reason. On a macro level, yes, you kind of date stamped where we are. There's a lot of interesting things happening in the economy. There's a lot of interesting things happening in the world. So from a macro perspective, yeah, it's a crazy time to buy a business. I'm an idiot to do it. But from a micro perspective, it was the right time for me. It was the right time for the business, for me to join the business. So tell you a little bit about Petro West. Petro West has been around for 26 years. And was founded and ran by a couple of individuals for that entire period. They were approaching the sunset of their career, and they are self-proclaimed salesmen that happen to run a company. So as such, the company is growing, and I think at an inflection point of starting to become a big boy. And they didn't quite know how to do that, and they were at the sunset of their careers. And what they needed is exactly what I brought. So we were introduced to each other. And at first I said, no, why would I buy a business we're talking about COVID time. Why would I do that? But the more conversations we had, the more I got excited of if they just tweaked this, or if they just did this, oh my goodness, the opportunities are endless. And so it took a course about a year to go back and forth to really decide to take the plunge and do this. People, yeah. You're doing an amazing project that's gonna make a company $10 million a year or $3 billion a year, depending on the size of the company, and they get to run with it and do it. I kind of always had that urge to do that for myself. And so there's a speech by Teddy Roosevelt that I love called "The Man in the Arena." In fact, I'm looking over your shoulder here in my office. That I've got a big plaque that shows that speech. But it all talks about taking risk, and you're the man in the arena that can now control your own destiny. Critics aside, doesn't matter what anyone else says, you've got the reins. And I've always had that desire to do that. I don't know that I had it in me to start a company from scratch and build it up. I have a deep respect for those who do it. And so the next best thing for me personally was to find an existing company that I could add value with my skill sets, my passions, and jump into the arena. So it was certainly a big plunge, but it's gone phenomenally well, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about our future, and I've really just enjoyed the opportunity thus far.
Let's talk about the industry overall. So fuel. So what kind of things attracted you, I guess, on the macro level, just the industry overall?
So this is an industry, we have three lines of business. We do the new construction, and we service, and we do renovations for anything outside of the gas station. So all of the pumps, the tanks, the point of sale, all of those items. There's not a lot of competition, frankly. There's not a lot of people who do that, and which brings positives, but also brings negatives, because there's an old way of doing business that my dad did it, my grandpa did it. There's not a lot of competition, so customers have to use me. They have no choice. So in some ways that's good, but in other ways, I think the customer is getting the raw end of the deal here. And so that's something that we'll probably get into that here in a little bit, but that's what we're really focusing on to try to set ourselves apart. Is we want to be the ones you want to work with. We want to have a seamless and a great customer experience that is absolutely going to set us apart and has set us apart. And so it's been an industry that I had no experience in prior to, and I knew that. And so I knew I had to put together an executive team that did. So I've surrounded myself with people with decades in the industry and a phenomenal executive team to help drive some of the change that we're trying to do. But again, it's an industry with pretty low competition, and it's something that we all need, at least for the time being. Fuel's not going away anytime soon. We'll transition into EV, but it's not going away anytime soon, and it's been a fun ride.
So, of course, with the acquisition, as you mentioned, is pretty new. So, with new acquisitions, many times come management changes, processes changes, all those type of things that just come with new ownership in general for any business, typically. How have you been dealing with that?
I think I'll answer that in two ways. How have I been dealing with that, and then how have my people been dealing with it? Because my heart goes out to the employees of Petro West that work all across the Western United States. They've seen a lot of change. There's been new bosses, new org chart, new way of doing business, new culture, new technology, new systems that we've implemented. One of the concerns I had coming in, I knew we had a lot of change to do. So I wanted to go as fast as we can absorb it and not too fast to scare people away. And full credit to the team. They have absorbed it. They have arms wide open. There were some things and quick wins that we did early on that worked. So like, oh, okay, I guess change can be good. And so I'm asking their forgiveness for things that don't work, because there's going to be changes that we implement that don't work. But so far, we've been able to move much faster than I anticipated on a lot of the changes that we've done, including from the top. We completely redesigned the org chart, and the executive team pulled in some talent from the outside, and these people have jumped right in and fit right in with the culture we're trying to build at Petro West. So for the company, I think honestly they're doing a fantastic job. For me, I'm really enjoying it. I like change. I like improvement. My wife and I have moved 17 times in our 20 years of marriage. Some of that is because we like change, but there's career reasons and other things like that that go into that as well. I'm having a blast. I'm having what I like most about change and the changes we're doing here is seeing the results, seeing that people's jobs are easier, seeing that our customers are happier, seeing P&L statement improve. All of that it's an adrenaline rush, frankly, for me, that I've really enjoyed.
Oh man, that's amazing. I can tell you're enjoying it. So that's awesome. What kind of things would you like to communicate to your customer base? Because we've talked about some of the internal things, culture, processes. Ultimately, of course, the beneficiaries would be, the customers and consumer base at the end product. I mean, what kind of things would you like to communicate to them? What's your vision there?
Yeah, I would sum it up into a short-term versus a long-term play. Previous ownership, again, did a fantastic job of building foundation of a company. A lot of focus was on short-term maximizing profits for each individual job. Of course, we need to do that. We're a business, but I am much more in this for the long play. I want a customer to keep coming to us over and over and over because they had a good experience. They thought they were they were charged fairly. The value that they received was equal or more than the value that the amount that they paid out. So we are in this for the long term. And I think our customers are starting to see that, and those who potentially were customers in the past and maybe had a bad experience, because there were certainly some of those. Yeah. Give it a shot. We will do everything we can to make it a great process, a great experience for you. And we've put our money where our mouth is. We've unfortunately given a number of credits because we felt like we messed up as a company, and we took responsibility and accountability for that. And the customer was right, and we absolutely stepped up and took care of that. But for the most part, we're putting in new metrics and tracking and making sure that we are taking care of the customer. So give us a shot.
So, of course, entering a new industry or new business or new anything, there's always going to be surprises. I mean, that's going to happen. What's been one of your biggest surprises in joining this industry?
Taking over the helm of Petro West, I knew there was going to be a lot of processes and operational improvement that needed to occur. So that's what I was kind of gearing up for and spent most of my time doing early on. But thinking back in my career of consulting and then at a marketing and advertising agency, it was all about a seamless customer experience. I know I've talked about this a few times in the interview, but honestly, that was a surprise to me that I would use those skills so much here. Because a lot of the work that we did was with the large telecom or B2C players where they needed to have a good customer experience in order to survive. Petro West is more B2B. They work with contractors, they work with larger developers, they work with small mom and pop gas stations. I didn't expect that there would be so much need in an industry that is, like I say, is pretty old school, that just the simple thing of taking care of the customer is an anomaly in this industry. And that was a surprise. I did not expect. So we did a pivot shift. We're still working on operations and process improvement, but now we're doing things like customer journey maps and improving our site to make it easier for our customers, improving our pay process, improving everything that the customer touches us with needs to be easy for them. And again, the momentum that we've got from that blew me away. I just did not expect that.
Wow, that's amazing. And it throws me off too. Like a lot of times when, because I asked that question, we had different people buy different businesses, different things. And it seems like that customer journey is something that we come back to like over and over and over again. And if you can make that journey better, you can deepen those relationships. I mean, that's really at the core.
It is. And sometimes it's taken for granted. And I think that's when people kind of slip and fall. If it is taken for granted, it's not purposeful, it's not designed, and it's probably pretty bad. Yeah. And so maybe I shouldn't have been surprised. Maybe that's a lesson learned for me, but I certainly was, and I course corrected and are taking care of that.
So what's next? So what's next for Petro West? I mean, we've gone over quite a bit, but in your vision going forward, I mean, what are some things that you're hopeful for?
2021 is going to be a good year for us. We're coming out of again, timestamp, but we're coming out of a COVID environment that's quite interesting and weird. There's a lot of people who push pause on growth, and that have started to release that. So 2021, I think, is going to be a great year for Petro West. Looking ahead, we know we have to maintain our core business, but also change with the times. We have electronic charging. We have a new presidency with new regulations and a new approach to the environment. We're going to have to adapt and adjust and stay ahead of that. And so we are looking at a number of different offerings to expand our service line to allow for that. So on the regulation side, we are launching next month a new tank cleaning business that to make sure that there's no sludge and other things within the tank, to make sure that we're not polluting the engines, which then do pollute the environment. We are in the process of evaluating vendors for electronic charging. So whether it be installed at gas stations, whether it be installed at hotels, we have a new slew of customers that we think are going to be wanting to install charging stations as that becomes more popular here and potentially more regulated. In Europe, they've already established that, I don't remember the date, but they gave a date on every single petrol station or gas station needs to have electronic charging by, I believe it's 2030.
Wow.
We haven't seen that yet here in the United States, but it could be coming. It's a new regime, a new ownership. And so we've got to make sure that we react and respond accordingly.
Man, that's exciting. I'm excited. I'm excited to follow you to track the progress of the company and just to see you grow and just create opportunity for your employees. Of course, the more jobs you're creating, the more the more opportunity in general that you're creating, and also better experience for your customers. I mean, I just love it. I think it's a great success in terms of a business story, and I know you're just getting started with where you want to go. So I'm excited to have you on the show so that we can catch up in the future and say, hey, I remember when you just did that acquisition.
Gladly, absolutely. I would love to do that and hopefully report back some good news.
Awesome. Well, Adam, just want to say thanks again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure and wishing you much success in your new acquisition, and all the best to you and your employees. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. We have more great guests just like Adam coming up. Adam, if somebody wants to follow up and learn more about Petro West or just follow your work in general, I mean, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, our site is probably the best place to go. It's www.petrowestinc.com.
Fantastic. And Adam, thanks again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again.